Okay. So we all know that non-avian dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago when a large asteroid or comet slammed into Earth, triggering a mass extinction event. But before their sudden and dramatic end, dinosaurs had already been around for over 100 million years. And during that time, they experienced lots of other mass extinction events. So if an asteroid impact is such a game-ending event, why did dinosaurs get to be so successful in the first place? Well, it's not like they were the only large animals around. However, there were clear differences in how different groups recovered. The researchers think cockroaches may hold the key because their fossil record tells a similar story to the archosaurs. But that doesn't necessarily mean that cockroaches were the cause of the archosaurs' success. In other words, if two groups of animals were both declining in the fossil record, their decline mirrored each other. But those that lived during the late Permian and early Triassic were mostly small, medium, and large. But afterwards, large meat-eaters were in short supply. The extinction of so many large animals created an opening for medium-sized animals. And the cockroaches and dinosaurs that fell within that size range were just the ones best suited to take advantage of it. And that's why they became so abundant. So medium-sized dinos adapted to fill the gap. Their smaller size made them more agile than the big dinos, and they had fewer predators to fear than the little dinos. And so they were able to survive and reproduce more successfully than their larger and smaller cousins. Small, medium-sized dinosaurs dominated until larger dinosaurs evolved and took over the apex predator spot. At that point, medium-sized dinosaurs declined, just like their modern-day cockroach counterparts. And the fossil record indicates that the population boom happened primarily among the medium-sized ones. Medium-sized cockroaches are generalist omnivores, which means they aren't picky eaters and will consume a wide variety of food sources. But studying their history can teach us a lot about the history of life on Earth and help us predict how ecosystems might change in the future. For example, we know that right now, human activity is causing a mass extinction event. So by studying past extinctions, we can better understand the impacts of our own, and that flexibility seems to be the key to their success. And the same went for increases in abundance. It's guessed that whatever ecological opportunity there was for cockroaches also applied to the archosaurs. So cockroaches weren't just abundant because archosaurs were abundant. Instead, it seems likely that both groups benefited from the same environmental shifts. Maybe they just happened to be abundant for totally different reasons. To investigate this further, the team used a statistical technique to tease apart correlation from causation. They calculated how the abundance of each group of animals changed over time, and then built a model to see if there were any relationships between the abundance of different groups. Cockroaches were already abundant before the Great Dying, but their numbers took a big hit during the mass extinction. Then after the extinction event, their population exploded. Just like the archosaurs, they quickly became one of the dominant land animals in the world. And they've held on to that title ever since. For instance, the diversity of a group called the parasaurs, which are large, clunky-looking reptiles that lived mostly in water, never really recovered. By the beginning of the Triassic, they had disappeared entirely. But other groups like the archosaurs, which include crocodiles and dinosaurs, quickly rebounded. And by the beginning of the Jurassic, they were more diverse than ever before. For much of the Mesozoic era, they shared the planet with a variety of big, dumb, long-necked sauropods, short-legged ornithischians, relatives of Ankylosaurus, and many other kinds of weird, wonderful beasts. Like the asteroid impact that ended their reign, there was a mass extinction at the end of the Permian period, which was so severe that it earned the nickname the Great Dying. It killed off an estimated 70 to 90% of all marine species, and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species. The leading hypothesis for why so many critters died is that massive amounts of volcanic gas has caused global warming and ocean acidification. But unlike the asteroid impact, which was relatively quick and short-lived, the environmental changes brought on by volcanic activity dragged on for thousands of years. In order to figure out what made the dinosaurs different, and in the process, learn what we can about the impacts of past mass extinctions. Researchers have spent years combing through the fossil record, and they think they might have found the answer in the form of a very familiar animal, the cockroach. In a study published this week in the journal PNAS, they present some interesting parallels between the rise of dinosaurs and the rise of cockroaches. So to see how organisms bounced back from both of these mass extinction events, the authors of this new paper examined fossils from Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. This area preserves an exceptional sequence of rocks from the latest Permian all the way to the early Jurassic. So it's a perfect place to study the recovery of life after the Great Dying. They focused on the latest Permian and the earliest Triassic periods and looked at changes in the diversity and abundance of fossils. Specifically, they studied 24 groups of animals, including insects, crustaceans, amphibians, reptiles, and more. And what they found was that although many groups initially experienced a decline in diversity following the mass extinction, over time, most recovered to and even surpassed their pre-extinction levels. So what allowed some groups to recover, while others didn't? So cockroaches and archosaurs both experienced a massive population spike after the Permian mass extinction. What they found was that the more closely related a group was to cockroaches, the more closely their abundance matched. But what kind of shifts? Cockroaches today come in a whole lot of sizes. See? Before the mass extinction, large proto-dinosaurs were at the top of the food chain. They were the predators. So the rise of cockroaches and dinosaurs may have been a numbers game. Now obviously, we can't actually ask dinosaurs or cockroaches how they got to be so darn successful.